All right, new Battletech enthusiasts. There's been a tremendous influx recently into the Battletech community, at least from my perspective. And I've been following up on some comments, posting up a couple of ideas over on my blog and on Twitter, and a couple of questions that have come up from new players. Fritz, what's the scope of Battletech? Not so much from the lore, but what are some of the different options here? Because there's a lot of technical books, there's a lot of manuals, a lot of miniatures. Like, how do we approach this? What are some of the different ways to play the Battletech universe? And that's what we're going to look at in this vlog, focusing on the Game of Armored Combat starter set, whether that's the core starter set or the beginner box, which is the 2 mechs, or looking at mechs only, because essentially the core Game of Armored set looks at the game from mechs to mechs. So certainly in the Battletech narrative, mechs are king. They're what you're going to focus on. They're what you're going to play a lot. Mech versus mech combat on hex maps or traditional wargaming tables. That's the entry point. That's where you want to start. And again, I would recommend the Game of Armored Combat, but you could equally download the rules and pick up a bunch of mechs that you like, or maybe you got your hands on an old collection or something on eBay and you want to jump in. Mech versus mech. So you play that for a while and we explore that. And that's the core rules. But then there are additional rules for total warfare, where now, because Battletech can be a combined arms game. The Battletech universe, certainly mechs are king, but you've got tanks, you've got air support, you've got vehicles. And the nice thing about Battletech is you can bolt on or take off what you want. And the rules work throughout all of it. So you start with mechs, and then at some point you'll add on vehicles, tanks, and infantry. The rules are the same. The sheets are a little bit different. Some of the mechanics are slightly different, but it works perfectly. You can play Battletech from that perspective. Then you can decide to layer on air support, whether it's dedicated air support or VTOLs, attack vehicles. So now you're adding on elevation. So you can play Battletech from that perspective, adding that to tanks, infantry, and mechs. And again, adding miniatures for this. There's rules for artillery, which you can have on table or off table. There's even rules for space combat, where you're going to be using Aerotech space ground attack fighters that can fight in space, fight in the air, fight on the table. You can have Battletech space battles and play it from that perspective before the mechs even make it to the table. Those rules bolt on. So you could, in theory, but this would be a big game. As you bolt on more rules, naturally, the components of the game get slower and turn down. But you could have 2 side-by-side tables. I've done this occasionally. We have a space battle going on with dropships and spacecraft fighting each other. At the same time, I've got a table next to it with mech units. And we've played where you could drop down from space to attack the mech units, or stuff that is on the table could possibly, if it has the capability, move up to space to fight in there. You have that flexibility with Battletech. But again, it's bolting on a lot of rules. Now, I would say most of my Battletech games, the way they play, I like to play combined arms. So we agree on a battle value ahead of time, 5K, 6K, 2K. Battle value is like one of the currencies that you can use to literally pay points for mechs and tanks. We'll play with mechs, we'll play with tanks. That gives you a good, and infantry, that gives you a good combination. Occasionally we'll add air support, occasionally we'll add infantry. So you can make Battletech as easy as you want or as complex as you want. And it scales nicely based on your miniature collection, but also the time that you have physically to play. If I have 2 hours, we do mechs versus mechs. If I have a day, we make that a very, very big battle. Now, there's also a role-playing component of Battletech. It's a miniature war-based game, but there's an entire complementary side of role-playing, playing mech warriors, playing in that universe. So from that perspective, you can also bolt that on to your games, where you can have a mini role-playing session that would impact the battle, or during the battle, you can have role-playing aspects break out with character interaction and abilities. And again, making it as complex as you want or as simple as you want. And in that complexity, you can explore the Battletech narrative completely as a role-playing game. Never even touch mech combat. I mean, you might have some some RPG cinematic combat as a mech warrior in your mech, but you could leave the tabletop miniatures completely over on that side of the room and do entirely RPGs. Likewise, you could just do tabletop and play the mechs, or you can bring in the synergy of both. So you have that RPG aspect. And then the final aspect to get involved with, and this takes a little bit of reading and a little bit of research, but Battletech is not like Warhammer 40,000, although Warhammer 40,000 has made some strides recently. It's not set in one time period. Or a better example, historicals. Chain of Command, World War II, fantastic rule set, focuses on World War II, not what happens before or after. You need a different set with that. Battletech, you can play at the Star League when mechs were founded. You can play the Succession Wars. You can play when the clans invaded. You can play Jihad. You can play Dark Age. There's this idea of literally hundreds of years that these mechs are in play, and you can play at different points and explore different narratives. And that's exciting. That's exciting because it allows you to take your miniatures and mech collection and utilize these at different points and times, and they play vastly different. So let's look at an example of a Shadowhawk created by the Star League. You can play it in that aspect. Star League Shadowhawk, the tech level is going to be much higher because it's supported. It's well known. It's just been produced. We're at the highest level yet. We haven't started these Succession Wars where industry has been destroyed. So I have my miniature. I'm playing in that time frame. I advance the time frame, take my miniature, and now play at Succession Wars. That's kind of the Shadowhawk that we know and that we love. We take that to the clans. Well, early on the clans, that Shadowhawk's in trouble because clan tech is a lot higher. But then as the invasion continues and new technology is discovered and recovered, maybe I upgrade my Shadowhawk with some lost tech. Maybe I make some improvements. Then we advance it to the Dark Age, and assuming that Shadowhawk is even still around, it's got primitive armor, it's got a primitive fusion engine. I mean, it's been replaced and cannibalized to the point where it's barely even a mech. So, kind of that Mad Max type feeling, playing it from that perspective. That's exciting because your miniatures can play across multiple timelines. And that might be something that you just explore once in a while to get a little taste, or that could be something that you regularly play. So jumping into Battletech is massive. It is a massive sandbox, and it can be very, very overwhelming. But in my opinion, the place to start, the point to start, the toys that you're going to use no matter what you explore, the mechs. Starting with the mechs, starting with the game of armored combat, and then branching out to there based on your player personality, branching out of there based on what you're feeling and what you want to explore in this universe.